Dan Lemmon is the visual effects supervisor, the Oscar nominated visual effects supervisor for The Batman. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby. Wanted to kick things off, Dan, by asking you, what was Gotham's most important visual effects?
It's a good question. I mean, I think for us, the key thing was, uh, well, look, it's a different kind of Batman movie than some of the others that have gone before, where our director Matt Reeves, he had a sort of a mandate at the beginning that he wanted this to be, the most realistic kind of grounded Batman that had been made to date. He wanted to keep things as just kind of completely believable as possible. We knew we wanted to make an exciting action adventure movie, but really for him, it was about keeping it gritty and kind of getting back into that sort of, the Dark Knight, the dark noir detective story. And so, that meant that we weren't doing a lot of like sci-fi technology. We weren't doing a lot of like, supernatural elements or anything like that. So it was all grounded in reality. So for Gotham, the key for us was to keep it as believable, as credible, and as realistic as possible. And key to that was grounding everything in photography. So shooting cities as a foundation for our plates, and then altering and extending from there, but keeping everything kind of following the rules of urban development and of neighborhoods, and while still making it visually interesting.
Yeah, like were there are there challenges with doing a sort of superhero film visual effects where you don't have the sort of maybe bright colors and lasers where you in that sort of gritty, very dark sort of world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the key kind of difference for us. Was we wanted to make something that was different from from a Marvel movie or some of the other DC movies, and keep it as as familiar to our real world as possible. So yeah, I mean, the danger is that if you do your job right, people don't actually know that you've done anything, because you're trying to make things look like our real world. Still, you want that scale and you want those exciting action pieces, and it's a Batman movie, so there's going to be some gadgets, and there's going to be hopefully the Batmobile and some of his other vehicles. But in this film, we wanted it to look like Bruce Wayne could have made this stuff in his garage, and that the space that he inhabits has that kind of patina of realism. So Matt worked with the production designer James Chinlin to kind of craft this world where, like, rather than living off in Wayne Manor, this Bruce Wayne lives in Wayne Tower.
Oh,
there, I lost you for a second.
oh, that's right. You're back. I'm back. Whoever's back is back.
Yeah, so we wanted to kind of anchor it in that urban heart of Gotham.
Yeah, and I think something like a real strength of like Batman as a superhero, which sort of goes counter to a lot of other superhero films and franchises we've seen. There's a real strength because that city of Gotham is such a rich environment of, rather than sort of expanding a universe, actually just diving into a specific city and sort of
Yeah.
almost shrinking the universe to just like get stuck into those characters and what that city's become. What was it like? How did you balance sort of helping create a familiar world that was also different to maybe other iterations we've seen of Gotham?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's and you're right. It was, and I think this is true of of Batman in general. That it's his relationship with the city and with the what the city's become, and his kind of conflict with that is kind of central to his character. So yeah, it was it was definitely in keeping with the canon, if you will. But I think one of the other things too is, like, Matt, when he was figuring out what the movie was going to be all about, he was referencing films like like Chinatown and The French Connection, which are those kind of like gritty 70s detective stories that have where there's a strong relationship between the city and the protagonist, and then I think that for him was key. He and James, the production designer, they talked about Gotham as another character in the movie, and an important character, and a character that has an arc. That there's the Gotham of his childhood, there's the Gotham that we start the film with, and then there's the Gotham that he hopes to to, I guess, be a part in creating, as the film concludes. And so that was a big part of it. And I think by kind of narrowing the scope a little bit, it allows you to get into the just kind of like focus on that relationship between the character and the city, rather than it being about building out an entire universe where you're kind of hopscotching from one planet to another, or one from location to location, which are they're great in their own right. Like it's those kind of films are fun, but this is a different kind of thing.
What do you think's one of the most, or one of the more important decisions you made?
Well, yeah, I think in everything we decided we were going to try to make it real, and we were going to we would compromise on some of the, like, if we had a choice to make between making something exciting or making it look real, or making something look pretty or making it look real, we were going to pick real. And so that kind of filtered down into a lot of the smaller decisions that we made in the film. And one of the big things that we did was, rather than shooting some of our sets on blue screen stages, we used the LED walls. We built effectively like an LED volume, and we built in prep, we built Gotham as a visual effects asset, and then loaded it onto these walls, and it allowed us to put our characters and put our sets in front of a background that was giving real light into the set. And so that meant that, but our wet sets, our dark sets, our characters that were wearing black shiny leather, that rather than having blue screen reflecting off them and shining on the set, we had Gotham reflecting off them and shining off their suits. And that it can be a subtle difference, and it can also be a tool that you can misuse. But for us, what it gave us was, when in scenes like where Batman and Selina are standing on the skyscraper at sunset, all the rich oranges and blues in the sunset sky, they're reflecting off the puddles in the set, they're reflecting off their costumes and their faces, and it lends a certain realism that if you'd had a blue screen there and you'd had to try to replace all those blue reflections, you just never would have had as realistic of a result. And that was a conversation between visual effects and Greg Fraser, our DP, as well, about his commitment to light the sets using the backgrounds. He said, look, if we went out to a skyscraper and we were up there, I wouldn't actually want to put a lot of lights on the set. What I want to do is use the sky and then the city around to light the set. So in effect, we sort of brought the environment to the set by using the LED volume.
There's always I feel like whenever I talk to people who do visual effects, or I watch interviews with people who do visual effects, there's always things that you're sort of like someone like me, a common man, wouldn't pick up as a visual effect in the film, or something in this film that most people wouldn't think of as a visual effect, but is.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think there's probably sections where you know that something's going on, but you're not quite sure, what it is exactly. I think for us, one of the key things about the film, again, getting back to just trying to keep things as grounded as possible, was our heavy use of practical effects. And our special effects supervisor, Dom Tui, his team built 4 practical Batmobiles, which obviously has been done in the past. Every Batman movie seems to have a Batmobile, but these vehicles we built as actually high performance stunt action vehicles. They were they had big V8 Chevy engines in them. They were set up basically like rally cars, where you could switch between two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. You could control the brakes at each wheel independently, like a Formula One car. And we had actually, ex-British rally champion drivers driving the cars, as the stuntmen. So it was we put a lot of investment in that practical element of the effects as well. And then, when we came to shoot the Batmobile chase, we shot a practical version of just about every single shot, but there were still constraints in terms of safety, and just how hard you could make contact with the vehicles. There were things like, when the Batmobile jumps and it goes through the wall of fire, which we had a big conversation about whether we were going to do that for real or not, and that's actually one of the things that Dom Tui really pushed to do practically. So we set up, one of the Batmobiles was set up specifically for jumping, and we were able to jump it repeatedly, like all day long. It would go up a ramp, it'd go 12 feet high, it'd soar for almost 100 feet before it would hit down again, and it would, there was a wall of fire that it would drive through as well. So when you see those shots in the film, they're practical, but they required a lot of engineering and a lot of effects, special effects work to be able to achieve those.
Mm. And Dan, congratulations on the Oscar nomination for the film. I believe you're nominated alongside Russell Earl, Anders Langlands, and Dominic Tui. So exciting, particularly like we've talked about, like it's a superhero film. We've got Batmobiles, we've got big fight scenes, we've got explosions, gunshots, all that sort of stuff. But it isn't as maybe as bombastic as other bright colored laser sci-fi sort of things that we've seen. What does it mean for you and the team to get nominated for this film?
I mean, I think look, anytime you get nominated for an Oscar, it's a pretty amazing experience. And this is one of those films where going into it, we knew, we wasn't necessarily the kind of film that would stand out as having a lot of visual effects, because by design we were trying to hide our hand, as much as possible. And there's no spaceships, like you say, there's no lasers, there's no nothing magical. And our goal was to make it feel as I don't want to say unspectacular, but as believable of being from our world as possible. So to have our peers recognize the film as having a lot of quality visual effects work and being worthy of a nomination, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty special.
And you've won an Oscar before, back in I think around 2017 for The Jungle Book. Where's that Oscar currently?
It's upstairs in my living room. Yeah.
And what did that mean to you to win the Oscar?
Look, it was amazing. Like it was it's pretty incredible. And look, I work with a team that we worked together for many years. We keep coming back and doing projects together. A lot of the team that I worked with, we'd done some of the Planet of the Apes movies that had been nominated but hadn't won for the Oscars. So we'd been before, and look, if it's an amazing event just to be invited to. So it's you feel lucky even if you don't actually win the award, but it definitely it's a completely different experience when they call your name and you get to walk up on stage. It's I don't really have words to describe it. You feel for a moment like you're out of your own body. But anyway, it was super amazing.
What Dan do you love about visual effects? What made you sort of get into this sort of field?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I love movies. When I was young, my family didn't have a lot of money, and they had this kind of like summer program for kids where you could I think it was for like $10 or something. You could get these tickets, and every Wednesday you go to a double matinee. And so we go down to the Valley Twin. It was a Twin Theater. and I'd watch like a lot of them were old movies. But I remember I saw E.T. There, and just being like completely sucked into the story. I was probably about the same age as Elliot, and the idea of an alien in your closet and helping him get home, like, and that creature E.T. I just got so I guess connected to it, and the music, and I mean just everything about it, like I absolutely loved it. I was like, one day I would love to be able to do something like that. And then, a few years later, or quite a few years later, Jurassic Park came out. And that was a film where, you had these gigantic characters again, these creatures. And, as a kid, I loved dinosaurs, but to see them on the silver screen, acting with, or basically playing in scenes with the actors. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And it's like somehow I wanted to be able to do that kind of thing. And so that's how I got hooked. And just chase that dream.
Yeah. What now that you're doing it, what do you love most about it?
I mean, I really like being able to work on films where there's new challenges, where there's things that are a little bit outside of like normal. I like films that take risks, and when films take risks and visual effects can be a part of that, can help tell a story that otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell. I think that's a pretty amazing experience. It was an interesting thing, like when I worked on Titanic back a few years ago, and we finished that film, and James Cameron was talking about this film Avatar that he wanted to make, and we did a few tests, and he decided that the technology wasn't ready yet, that they couldn't tell the story that he wanted. And I ended up leaving LA and came to New Zealand, and we worked on the Lord of the Rings films. It wasn't too long after the Lord of the Rings films that Jim came calling again and said, well, having seen what you guys did there and on King Kong as well, part of that experience on the first Avatar, it was really it was incredible to be part of that team that could tell a story that initially wasn't ready to be told, but that having pushed the tools and pushed the craft and the skills of the team, that we got to a point where suddenly it unlocked the potential to tell new kinds of stories. And anytime you can be involved in something like that, where it's you're doing something that allows a storyteller to to do something new, I think is pretty amazing. And sometimes that's just, I mean, like this year was a pretty incredible year that way. Like you had films like Everything Everywhere All at Once, that was just such a creative film, and it went in so many different directions at once. And the visual effects were part of that story, and part of like making that that possible. I thought that was at one end of the spectrum, like totally amazing in its own right. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you had Avatar, The Way of the Water, which was also an amazing film, also only possible through to tell that story through visual effects as well. And completely different kinds of films, and both just fantastic.
Yeah. To finish off, Dan, what's your favorite thing about the Batman? What do you love most about the film?
Oh, I mean, like Batman was another one of those films, like from my childhood, like the original Tim Burton Batman. Like when that came out, like I got I was already a comic book fan, but to see one of your heroes realized in the film in a way that for me was it was so cool. And then the second one with Michelle Pfeiffer and Dan DeVito was also, like in some ways, I think even a better film than the first. And so Batman was always something I was into. And then it kind of, you know, went away for a little while, and then when the Nolan films sort of resurrected The Dark Knight, you know, I thought they're great, but they weren't ever films that I'd had an opportunity to work on. So when, you know, Matt Reeves, who I'd worked with on some other pictures, ended up deciding that that was going to be his next project, we, you know, we were all super excited just as fans of Batman, just to see what he would do with it. But also, you know, when I had the opportunity to come on board, yeah, it was a bit of like a childhood dream come true. So, I mean, I think the character itself and like the franchise, like he's just got so many. There's such rich, like kind of mythic iconography there, and you know the story itself. It's like, I think he's you know, in many ways the most relatable superhero, and also the one that's kind of the most you know, connected to you know, the world that I understand. So I think yeah, I don't know, it was, yeah, a dream project, and then also just the opportunity to work with Matt Reeves again as well, and the team that he has around him, and everybody's just the best of the best. And the decisions, you know, you see him make as a filmmaker when you're creating the film, it's pretty amazing to watch.
Mm. Well, Dan, thank you so much for chatting with us today. All the best of luck with the upcoming Oscars. People watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to make your awards predictions and join the discussion in our forums. And again, Dan, thanks for the chat.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.